There's a quiet ache that comes when you almost believe something is possible, but not quite. You picture the life, the call, the number in your account, the peace in your body, and yet it still feels like a fantasy playing behind glass. You can see it, but not touch it. You imagine, but then you open your eyes, and it's gone. Most people think the key is to visualize harder, to make the image more detailed, more vivid, to believe more fiercely. But what if that's not it at all? What if the reason it hasn't landed isn't because you don't see it clearly, but because you don't feel it safely? The truth is, imagination isn't about pretending. It's about practicing resonance. It's not a movie you watch. It's a signal you tune into. When you imagine something vividly, your brain doesn't know the difference between a real event and a rehearsed one. Your nervous system, your heart rhythm, your breathing, they all shift to match the scene. That's why imagining isn't wishful thinking. It's a rehearsal for embodiment. But here's the twist. Most people imagine from lack. They picture what they want while subconsciously reinforcing that they don't have it. It's like tuning a radio halfway between stations: static, distortion, interference. The image is there, but the signal isn't clean. So today, I want to show you a new way. Not to imagine to get, but to imagine to become. To use imagination as a bridge between the version of you that hopes and the one that already is. Because the moment you stop imagining as someone who wants and start imagining as someone who has, your entire frequency reorganizes. And reality, like a perfectly tuned radio, starts to broadcast back the signal you've been sending all along. Think of your reality like a radio spectrum. Infinite frequencies exist all around you. Every possible version of your life, already humming in the field. You can't see them all, but they're there, layered like invisible songs waiting to be tuned in. Most people spend their whole lives twisting the dial, begging the station to play a different song, while never realizing that they are the dial. Your state of being, your emotional tone, your breath, your body language, the quality of your inner dialogue is your frequency. When you imagine something, you're not creating it from nothing. You're momentarily tuning into that version of reality. You're sampling its broadcast. The question is, how long can you stay on that station before your old static pulls you back? Here's how it works underneath. The brain doesn't manifest, the body does. Your imagination is the instruction, but your nervous system is the transmitter. When the image in your mind clashes with tension in your body, your signal splits. One part says yes, another whispers, but it's not safe yet. And the field always responds to the dominant signal, the one charged with emotion, not thought. That's why thinking positive without regulation rarely works, because the body doesn't believe what the mind insists on. Coherence, the alignment of thought, emotion, and physiology, is what clears the static. When your inner frequency stabilizes, the world around you reorganizes to match. So when you imagine how it would feel if you already had it, you're not daydreaming, you're aligning. You're calibrating your transmitter to the station of the version of you that already lives that scene. But this is where most people get stuck. They try to force the feeling, to push themselves into excitement, joy, gratitude, while still secretly vibrating with doubt. And that strain creates interference. So the art isn't in forcing the feeling, it's in relaxing into the signal. It's letting your imagination become sensory, hearing the ambient sounds, feeling the air, noticing the small details that tell your body, this is real enough. Because when your nervous system experiences the future as present, the quantum field takes it as an update, not a request. And yet, here's the trap no one talks about. The reason so many people still feel blocked, even after visualizing perfectly, scripting, or meditating for months. It's not because their imagination is weak. It's because they're running a silent myth that cancels the signal before it can broadcast. And that myth is what we'll dismantle next. Here's the myth. If I imagine it enough times, it will happen. Sounds innocent, even logical. But hidden underneath is the subtle assumption that what you want is still separate from you. Something out there that needs to be summoned, chased, or earned. And that single assumption is what keeps the signal weak. You can imagine the perfect job, the message you've been waiting for, the freedom, the peace. But if your imagination starts from the position of absence, it transmits a code of distance. It tells the field, I don't have it yet. And the field, ever obedient, keeps confirming that truth. Let's make this real. Picture this. You're waiting for a text from someone you care about. You tell yourself you're calm, detached, fine. But your body says otherwise. Checking your phone every 5 minutes, feeling that tiny jolt in your chest each time the screen lights up. You might even try to visualize them writing to you, smiling, thinking of you. But if deep down you're still braced for disappointment, your body is radiating absence, not presence. The universe isn't hearing, "I want connection." It's hearing, "I'm afraid of being ignored." That's why imagination isn't about repetition. It's about identity rehearsal. When you close your eyes and imagine that person texting you, don't picture it as something you're waiting for. Picture it as something that already exists in your world. Feel the ease in your body, the lightness of knowing. Feel your phone buzz and your nervous system not react because it's already congruent with that version of reality. That's the secret pivot. Imagining from the state of it, not toward it. And something fascinating happens when you practice this. The field starts to respond differently. You stop reaching for confirmation, and confirmation begins to reach for you. The text might come from them, or from someone else entirely, but the resonance of connection finds its way in. Because you've shifted frequencies, you're not calling for the signal anymore. You are the signal. This is where imagination stops being fantasy and becomes embodiment. But there's still one more layer, the body's permission. The nervous system's readiness to hold what you've tuned into. Because if that part isn't regulated, it will keep unplugging the broadcast right before it locks in. And that's where we go next, into the gateway that determines whether your signal stabilizes or scrambles. You can't broadcast abundance through a body that still feels unsafe to receive. You can't tune into love through a heart still wired for protection. The nervous system decides what realities you can hold, not what you can imagine. This is why you might have moments where everything feels aligned. The visualization works, your energy lifts, synchronicities start appearing, and then, suddenly, it all collapses. It's not because you lost your vibration. It's because your system reached the edge of its safety zone. It touched a new frequency, and the subconscious pulled the plug to protect you. The body doesn't care about goals, it cares about survival. If wealth, love, ease, or visibility were ever associated with stress, rejection, or loss, then part of your system equates those states with danger. So when you imagine having them, it doesn't feel expansive. It feels threatening. The field might respond, but your body can't sustain the transmission. So, before you can hold the new frequency, you need to regulate the system broadcasting it. That's coherence, when your thoughts, emotions, and physiology move in rhythm instead of conflict. Here's a short practice, just 40 seconds, that starts to build that alignment. Close your eyes. Inhale slowly through your heart, as if your breath is moving directly in and out of your chest. Exhale twice as long, letting the body soften just a little more each time. Now, imagine one moment, doesn't matter how small, when you felt genuine safety or appreciation. Maybe a quiet morning, maybe laughter with someone you love. Stay there for 3 breaths. As you breathe, notice how the body begins to synchronize. The heart rhythm smooths. The mind stops reaching. This is coherence, and in that state, your signal becomes clear, like static fading into melody. You don't manifest from chaos, you manifest from coherence, because that's when the universe recognizes you, not as a desperate request, but as a harmonic match. So the next time you visualize your dream, don't start with the picture, start with safety. Let your breath slow the frequency. Let your body feel the truth of, "I'm allowed to have this," because when your nervous system feels safe enough to believe the image, that's when the field can finally reflect it back. But there's another level beyond safety, something far more powerful than temporary calm. The moment when the identity itself begins to shift, and your signal stops fluctuating altogether. And that's the pivot we'll explore. Here's the trap most people don't see. They treat manifestation like a mood management game, as if the goal is to hold the right state long enough for the universe to notice. But states fluctuate. They rise and fall with hormones, sleep, weather, notifications. They're not stable enough to carry a quantum signature. Identity is. When you identify as someone becoming, you're always waiting. You're in transition. When you identify as someone who already is, you collapse time. You stop tuning in and out, because the signal becomes part of your baseline frequency. This is where the difference between acting as if and being as is matters. Acting as if is performance. It's pretending, hoping the outside world will catch up. Being as is coherence. It's the inside world reconfiguring first, until the outer has no choice but to mirror it. Imagine this. You walk into a job interview. Your mind is whispering affirmations. "I'm confident, I'm capable." But your body is tight. breath shallow, heart racing. That's a temporary state. It's unstable. The interviewer doesn't consciously sense your words. They sense your vibration. Now imagine walking in as the identity of someone who belongs in that seat. Your tone shifts. Your breathing slows. Your posture settles. You're not trying to convince. You're remembering. The difference is subtle, but quantum fields respond to coherence, not effort. This is why people get exhausted trying to stay high vibe, because the body can't fake frequency. You can't sustain an emotional state that doesn't match your identity narrative. If deep down, you still see yourself as someone hoping, chasing, waiting, the signal loops back to that point of origin every time. So here's the pivot. Instead of asking, how do I feel that frequency? Ask, who naturally radiates that frequency? Don't maintain the state. Inhabit the self. Identity is the tuner. Once you shift it, the music changes automatically, and something strange happens after that. Time bends. Opportunities appear with eerie precision. People start saying things like, I was just thinking of you. This opening came out of nowhere. It's like it found you. That's not coincidence. That's resonance. Because the moment your identity stabilizes, you stop chasing timelines. You start selecting them. But how does that actually work? How does an identity choose which version of reality to tune into? And what happens when you fully step onto a new station of self? That's exactly where we're headed. Every identity lives on its own timeline. Think of each version of you as a unique broadcast, its own rhythm, tone, and storyline. When you shift identity, you don't attract a new life. You phase into a different broadcast altogether. Here's how it plays out in real life. Imagine you've been struggling financially. Your dominant frequency is survival, alert, tense, scanning for what might go wrong. You start visualizing abundance, but the station you're tuned to is still the one that broadcasts scarcity. Every thought of wealth is filtered through not yet. That's why you feel the pullback after every affirmation. Now imagine another timeline, one where you already are the kind of person who manages money easily, who makes aligned decisions, who expects flow. That version of you doesn't feel excited about abundance. It feels normal, comfortable, grounded. The frequency of enoughness hums in the background of everything. When you start imagining from that version, not as a fantasy but as memory rehearsal, your body begins to match it. Your breath deepens, your chest loosens. You stop scanning for loss, and the field takes that as a signal to reorganize. People, opportunities, and ideas that belong to that timeline begin to surface, because you've stopped anchoring yourself in the old one. The shift is subtle, but absolute. You no longer chase alignment, you broadcast it. Your actions change not through willpower, but inevitability. The choices that once felt impossible now feel obvious. This is why time is not linear in manifestation. You don't wait for your new life to arrive. You tune into the identity that's already living it. That identity exists now, on its own station, fully formed. The only barrier is coherence. And here's a secret few people admit. The field doesn't reward speed. It rewards stability. It doesn't care how vividly you imagine, only how consistently you hold the signal. The steadier your sense of self, the cleaner the broadcast. So when you feel reality resisting, it's not punishing you. It's testing your coherence. It's asking, are you still that version even when the evidence lags? Every time you answer yes, with calm presence, not desperation, the static fades. Because timelines don't change by effort. They click into place when identity no longer oscillates. And once you understand that, you can start training your system to stay tuned, to rehearse that coherence until it becomes muscle memory. Now that you know identity is the tuner, the question becomes, how do you practice staying tuned when life keeps testing the signal? How do you keep the new broadcast steady when the old one still echoes in your nervous system? This is where rehearsal turns real. Because embodiment isn't theory, it's training. Every moment of awareness is a rep that builds the muscle of coherence. Let's make it practical. Here are 4 tools you can start using immediately. 1. Bridge statements. These are phrases that help your mind and body transition from disbelief to ownership. Instead of forcing affirmations like, I'm abundant when your system doesn't buy it, use bridges. I'm beginning to feel more comfortable with things working out. It's becoming easier to trust that support finds me. I'm open to seeing evidence of ease. These statements invite resonance instead of resistance. They soften the gap between where you are and who you're becoming. 2. Somatic anchors. Pick one physical gesture that signals your chosen frequency. Maybe a slow exhale through the heart when you catch yourself worrying, or resting your hand on your chest when gratitude lands. Anchor the new identity into your body so it becomes automatic. Over time, that gesture becomes your reset button, a way of retuning without overthinking. 3. Timeline rehearsal. Before sleep or first thing in the morning, close your eyes and imagine as if you're remembering, not wishing. See through the eyes of the version of you that already has what you once wanted. Notice how they walk, breathe, make decisions. Don't analyze, absorb. This sensory rehearsal rewires the subconscious faster than any affirmation ever could. 4. The 3-minute field reset. Whenever static hits, anxiety, overthinking, doubt, pause. Breathe in through your nose for 4 counts, out for 6. Feel your body melting toward gravity. Whisper the question, what frequency am I on right now? Then, shift by choosing a single emotion that belongs to the identity you're tuning into. Peace, clarity, joy, certainty. And breathe that emotion until it stabilizes. These tools aren't about forcing belief. They're about training coherence. The more often you return to alignment, the stronger your default signal becomes. And soon, you'll notice something strange. Reality starts following your inner timing. Things click, people appear, answers arrive, not as surprises, but as reflections. Have you noticed that when you finally stop gripping, what you wanted somehow finds you? Tell me in the comments. Your story might be the one that unlocks someone else's leap. But before that leap expands outward, we need to face what most people run from, the hidden obstacles that scramble the signal every time it's about to stabilize. Every timeline shift begins beautifully, until resistance kicks in. You feel the new identity forming, synchronicities appearing, and then suddenly, you start tightening again. It's not random. There are 3 invisible forces that pull you back to static: urgency, split signals, and over-control. Urgency is the first. It disguises itself as passion or drive, but underneath it's fear wearing a costume. When you need something to happen now, your nervous system slips out of coherence. Urgency tells the field, I don't trust this yet. It transmits instability. That's why manifestation feels blocked when you obsess over time. The frequency of impatience carries the vibration of absence. The antidote? Slow the rhythm. Every time you catch yourself rushing, remind your system. Nothing real requires panic. The moment you relax, the timeline can finally sync. Split signals are subtler. You might say, I want freedom, but part of you believes freedom means isolation. Or you say, I want success, but deep down you associate it with burnout. These contradictory frequencies cancel each other out, like 2 radio waves colliding. To fix this, trace the fear underneath the desire. Ask, what would be unsafe about getting what I want? Let the answer surface, not to shame it, but to integrate it. Once the resistance feels seen, it dissolves and the signal clears. Over-control is the sneakiest of all. It's the impulse to micromanage the field, to decide how and when things should unfold. Control compresses frequency. It strangles the signal. The quantum field doesn't respond to willpower. It responds to coherence. The moment you try to force a manifestation, you shift from transmitter to blocker. So instead of gripping the outcome, focus on maintaining the tuning. Ask yourself, is my body relaxed right now? Because a relaxed body sends a stronger signal than a desperate mind ever could. Here's a truth that liberates you. The universe doesn't reward the one who tries the hardest. It aligns with the one who feels the safest being who they already are. When you master this, when urgency softens, signals align, and control melts, your manifestation frequency becomes stable enough to merge with everyday life. And that's the next step. Not meditating your way into alignment, but living it. Turning coherence into a lifestyle that naturally shapes reality around you. Because once the practice leaves the cushion and enters your conversations, movements, and meals, that's when you stop practicing magic and start embodying it. Here's where everything starts to merge, where quantum alignment stops being a morning ritual and becomes the way you walk through life. Because coherence isn't something you do, it's something you carry. You can meditate for 20 minutes and still lose your signal in traffic, in a text that doesn't come, or in a glance that triggers old rejection. The real work isn't in those calm, candle-lit moments. It's in how you hold the frequency when reality still looks the same. So how do you integrate? You start by turning ordinary moments into tuning forks. When you walk, notice your steps hitting the ground. Slow, rhythmic, grounded. Let each step echo the timeline you're choosing. Not a hurried one, not a desperate one, but the one that belongs to the self that already arrived. You're not walking toward it anymore. You're walking as it. When you eat, do it with coherence. Feel the weight of the food in your hands, the warmth, the scent. Gratitude isn't a ritual. It's resonance. It's saying to the field, this moment is enough. Because when you feel enough in the now, the future version of you has no reason to stay distant. Even in conversations, coherence can become your language. Before you respond to someone, take one slow breath. Tune into the identity you've been rehearsing. Ask, how would that version of me speak right now? Not to fake confidence, but to stabilize the broadcast. And when emotion rises, frustration, fear, disappointment, that's not failure. It's feedback. It's your tuner showing you where your signal wobbles. Don't suppress it. Breathe it. Name it. Integrate it. That's how a frequency evolves, not by denial, but by inclusion. Because integration isn't perfection. It's fluency. It's the ability to move through static without losing the song. Eventually, you'll realize that everything you do, how you wake up, scroll, drive, eat, rest, is part of your broadcast. Each act either amplifies or distorts the signal. And when you begin to live with that awareness, reality starts feeling soft, flexible, responsive. You won't need to chase proof anymore. You'll see it everywhere, in the timing of events, in how people respond, in the ease that starts replacing friction. But this is only the beginning of expansion. Because once coherence stabilizes inside the body, it doesn't just reshape your personal life, it starts radiating outward, rewriting the larger domains of your world. And that's exactly where we go next. When coherence becomes your baseline, it doesn't just change your internal world, it begins to rewire everything connected to you. Relationships, creativity, health, purpose, they all start reorganizing around your new broadcast. Because energy doesn't stay contained. It radiates, and once your field stabilizes, it becomes impossible for your outer world to remain unchanged. Let's start with relationships. When your frequency shifts from need to presence, you stop unconsciously asking others to fill your gaps. People feel the difference, the absence of pressure, the calm certainty. You attract from wholeness instead of scarcity. Conversations soften, boundaries form naturally. Love becomes magnetic, not transactional. Then comes creativity. Ideas flow when resistance is low. When your nervous system is safe, your brain opens pathways to insight. You stop chasing inspiration and start receiving it. The same field that mirrors your emotions also mirrors your curiosity. You'll notice moments of spontaneous clarity. Words, melodies, business ideas, arriving uninvited but perfectly timed. Health follows next, because your body listens to frequency too. Chronic tension, fatigue, even digestion often mirror incoherence. When you shift your identity to one that feels safe in expansion, the body responds as if it's been waiting for permission to heal. Sleep deepens. Energy stabilizes. You're no longer running on adrenaline but resonance. And then, purpose. The frequency that calls you forward. You realize it was never about finding your mission, but remembering your signal. When your broadcast becomes coherent, life orchestrates around it. You start meeting people who feel like missing pieces of a puzzle you didn't know you were assembling. The right collaborations appear without effort. The right paths unfold without force. Let's anchor it in a scene. Imagine you're facing a creative block. Maybe you've been staring at a blank page, doubting everything you've written. Instead of fighting it, you breathe into coherence. You imagine yourself as the version of you for whom creativity is natural, playful, effortless. Within minutes, the tension breaks. The words start flowing. You're not forcing output. You're tuning into the version of you that's already in motion. That's the secret. You don't fix reality. You shift the broadcaster. And when you live like this, radiating coherence across domains, the field begins to treat your entire life as a single instrument. Every note harmonizes with the next. But there's still one more leap. The moment when you realize this isn't just self-work. It's cosmic collaboration. There comes a moment when you realize this was never about getting what you want. It's about remembering what you are. The quantum conversation isn't between you and the universe. It's between one frequency, speaking to itself through different forms. Every shift in identity is an act of divine synchronization. You're not learning how to manifest. You're remembering how to co-create. The field doesn't obey you. It responds with you. It's not a vending machine waiting for the right code. It's a mirror of your inner geometry, reshaping as you do. This is where the paradox enters. Surrender is the highest form of control, because what you surrender isn't your power. It's your interference. It's the static of trying to make reality bend instead of letting it resonate. When you stop grasping, the signal clarifies. When you stop performing alignment, alignment performs itself, and you begin to sense something deeper, a current beneath all your desires, guiding them before you even name them. That current is the intelligence of the field. Some call it God, source, consciousness, coherence. The name doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling, a subtle precision behind every coincidence, a kindness disguised as timing. You start noticing that every delay had purpose, that every detour recalibrated your broadcast. What once felt like rejection now looks like redirection, your higher frequency protecting you from what didn't match your code. It's humbling, isn't it? To realize the same consciousness that breathes stars into being is tuning your heartbeats in rhythm with your next evolution. And this is where true manifestation becomes sacred, when you no longer separate spiritual from practical. Sending a message, showing up to work, resting, laughing, creating, it's all worship when done in coherence. Every action becomes a conversation with the field. Surrender isn't passivity, it's participation without resistance. It's stepping into the stream and letting it carry you, trusting that the current knows exactly where you belong. Because here's the final revelation. The universe isn't testing your patience, it's matching your faith. Every time you choose stillness over fear, trust over control, you amplify that match. And then, something profound happens. Life stops feeling like something happening to you and starts feeling like something happening through you. And in that shift, you finally understand what creation really means. But we still need to close the circle, to bring this understanding back to the metaphor we began with, and land it in one unforgettable image. It all comes back to the signal, the radio we began with, the invisible spectrum where infinite realities already play, waiting for a listener attuned enough to receive. You now know, imagination isn't fantasy, it's the dial. The nervous system is the tuner. Identity is the steady hand that keeps the station clear. And coherence, that feeling of relaxed alignment between thought, emotion, and breath, is what sharpens the broadcast until the field can no longer tell the difference between the signal you're sending and the world it reflects back. When you imagine as if you already have it, you're not pretending. You're remembering the frequency of that version of you. You're breathing life into a reality that already exists, inviting your body to feel safe enough to step inside it. Think of it. Every version of your life is playing somewhere on that dial. Wealth, love, health, peace, each one its own melody. You don't beg the universe to change the song. You simply steady your hand, breathe into coherence, and let the noise fall away until the right station comes through. And then, without effort, you realize the station was always there. It was never about finding it. It was about becoming clear enough to hear it. So as you move through your day, let every breath be a gentle retuning. Let every pause be a moment of remembering. Don't chase the frequency, embody it. Because in this field, creation doesn't respond to demand. It responds to resonance. Have you noticed that when you finally stop pushing, what you wanted quietly walks in as if it never left? Tell me your story in the comments. It might unlock someone else's alignment. And if there's one truth to carry with you from this moment forward, let it be this. Reality isn't waiting to give you permission. It's waiting to meet your frequency.